Welcome back to The Explainer. Okay, grab a coffee, get comfortable, because today we are diving into a truly beautiful story called Light and Roots. Now, this isn't just your standard romance, it is this incredible, profound look at how we actually find balance in love, in life, and honestly, within our own identities. We're going to look at how two completely opposite forces, the deep, cozy comfort of staying rooted and that wild, restless pull of wanderlust can somehow come together to create something absolutely extraordinary. So let's jump right into this visual journey. Just let those words hang in the air for a second. Running from roots didn't stop the grief. That one sentence right there, that is the emotional anchor for our whole explainer today. It immediately tells us that all this movement, this constant travel, it's not always just about chasing adventure. Sometimes it's literally a survival mechanism. It perfectly sets up the incredibly deep personal stakes our characters are wrestling with behind the scenes. And that brings us to the big, central question we're analyzing today. Can a wanderer and a homebody ever find the perfect exposure? It's such a universal struggle, isn't it? That intense clash between wanting stability and just craving exploration. How in the world do two people who have totally opposite ways of moving through life figure out how to walk side by side without one of them completely losing their stride? Let's get right into Chapter 1, the setup, or as I like to call it, the lens. So, our story kicks off somewhere wonderfully quiet, the Seattle Central Library. It's a rainy, gray day, classic Seattle, and it's right here, surrounded by all this glass and steel that two completely different worlds collide. Our guy, Marcus, walks up to a librarian named Elena, asking for this super dense book on long exposure night photography. And he drops his fascinating line, trying to capture the city when it thinks no one's looking. Think about what that actually reveals. It tells us so much about his restless, incredibly observant nature. He's the kind of guy who operates on the edges, constantly watching, trying to freeze time because he himself is just always in motion. Now, these two could not be more different if they tried. Take Elena. She is deeply rooted. She's lived in Seattle her entire life. She spends her time painting these quiet little watercolors in her Capitol Hill apartment. And she absolutely thrives on her routines and close family ties, like hanging out with her abuela. Then you have Marcus. For him, staying in one place for 6 months, that is literally a record. He is a global traveler, working in dark rooms, constantly chasing the light. She craves absolute stability. He is completely compelled by motion. Real quick, before we go any further, we need to talk about this one technical concept, perfect exposure. In the photography world, it's the process of letting light into a camera for a very specific amount of time to get a beautifully balanced, clear image, right? Too much light, the whole thing is washed out. Too little, it's just pitch black. And this is actually the absolute perfect metaphor for our explainer, because we're going to watch Elena and Marcus try to apply this exact technical process to human connection. Just how much of themselves do they have to let in to capture that perfect, balanced life together? Which brings us to Chapter 2, Developing. Much like an image suddenly appearing in the chemical baths of a darkroom, this relationship takes shape fast. It is this intoxicating, rapid-fire connection. We can kind of look at this phase as their 2-month roll of film. And look at what they build in that short time. Marcus starts showing Elena these hidden viewpoints around the city, totally changing how she sees the hometown she thought she knew. Meanwhile, Elena grounds Marcus. She takes him to quiet used bookstores. She introduces him to her abuela for homemade tamales. But the real magic happens when they share their vulnerabilities. Marcus finally opens up about the raw grief of losing his mother at 16, which, as it turns out, is the exact thing keeping him running. And Elena admits her biggest fear, being totally ordinary and just living through other people's stories. They're creating this really beautiful shared canvas. All right, Chapter 3, Overexposure. Or the conflict. But, as with any good story, the perfect light just doesn't last forever. That fast-paced romance inevitably hits a wall. This is the classic, heartbreaking clash of roots versus restlessness that we totally saw coming from day one. Let's look at how fast it all fractures. For 2 months, things are flawless. Then, on day 60, Marcus just casually drops that he took a 6-month commission in Iceland to photograph glaciers. By day 63, that tension explodes into a massive argument they call the storm. Elena realizes she needs a partner who's actually present, while Marcus is terrified that if he stays rooted, he's going to lose who he is. What follows is 2 agonizing weeks of gray, heavy silence. And then, the departure. Marcus leaves for Reykjavik, and it feels like the shutter just clicks closed on the whole relationship. But right as he's boarding that plane, Marcus sends one single text message. "I miss the way you see the world. I'm sorry." Man, that carries so much emotional weight.
It's so crucial because it shows us that their connection isn't actually broken, it's just stretched incredibly thin. Even with thousands of miles of physical distance between them, that emotional tether is still fully intact.
Moving on to Chapter 4, The Perfect Exposure. You know, sometimes it literally takes going to the absolute ends of the earth to finally get some clarity. Marcus is out there in one of the most starkly beautiful, isolated environments imaginable, but his focus is finally shifting inward. Let's break down how this epiphany happens. Step 1. He is shooting these massive, stunning landscapes in Iceland, black sand beaches, the northern lights, but to him, they just feel totally empty. Step 2. He holds up in this little cabin with the wind just howling outside, developing his film the old school way in a makeshift darkroom. Step 3. Under that red darkroom light, it hits him. As Elena's face slowly appears on the film from the shots he took back in Seattle, he realizes his greatest photos aren't of the world at all. They're of her. Being in that literal darkroom forces him to finally stop running from his grief. And then, step 4, he makes his move. He flies back to the Seattle Central Library 5 whole weeks early. So he walks back into that library, literally still brushing snow off his coat, and he tells Elena this. The best light I've ever found is the one in your eyes when you're lost in a book. He gets it now. He realizes that staying doesn't mean surrendering who he is. He offers this amazing compromise. He'll take shorter trips, or, better yet, they can travel together. He doesn't have it all perfectly figured out, but he knows for an absolute fact he doesn't want to miss her light anymore. So I want you to think about this for a second. Can two people with fundamentally opposing views on life actually find a shared rhythm? What this whole journey shows us is that true compromise, it doesn't mean changing your core self, not at all. It just means adjusting the exposure. It means figuring out how to overlap your world so that both people can still breathe, still create, and still be exactly who they are, but doing it together. And that brings us to our final chapter, the Golden Hour Epilogue. We fast forward 6 months, out to the misty, rugged trails of Olympic National Park, to see what this compromise actually looks like in the real world. The storm is over, the rain is cleared, and they've totally found their harmony. Picture this. Marcus is on one side setting up his tripod to shoot long exposure photos of the mist in the trees. And right next to him, Elena is sitting on a fallen log, capturing that exact same light with her watercolors. They've literally harmonized their art side by side. They kept their individual identities, the photographer and the painter, the wanderer and the homebody, but they are using those exact traits to build something beautiful together in the very same space. And it's right there in that misty forest that Marcus pulls out this little handmade book. It is a literal mashup of their talents. His candid photos of her blended perfectly with her watercolor paintings that he secretly scanned. And on the very last page, he wrote this: "Will you keep writing our story with me?" It wasn't just a marriage proposal. It was a proposal to keep creating together forever. So, did that shared rhythm actually last? Well, the story skips ahead years later to prove that it absolutely did. Right back where it all began, at the Seattle Central Library, there is a seasonal art display called Light and Roots. It's got Marcus's photography hanging right alongside Elena's watercolors. There's even a little short film playing of the two of them splashing in puddles with their young daughter. And the centerpiece of the whole thing? A framed, glossy print from their very first date under the string lights. It's their legacy. Those opposing lifestyles didn't break them. They actually combined to create this stunning, unified body of work that totally outlived their early struggles. The story wraps up with this really haunting, poetic observation about the Seattle rain. The rain turns the streets into mirrors where anyone can see their own story reflected if they know how to look. It's this beautiful reminder that stories about connection, about finding that perfect, delicate balance, are literally happening all around us every single day, just hiding in plain sight. Which leaves us with this final thought for you to take away today. What is your perfect exposure? Are you a steady light? Someone who thrives being deeply rooted in your routines and community? Or are you a constant search, just absolutely compelled to keep exploring? Or maybe, kind of like Elena and Marcus, you're starting to figure out that the best possible image only happens when those two powerful forces finally learn how to share the exact same frame. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. It's been awesome. I'll catch you on the next one. Keep looking for your light.